This is the Hold Report for Monday, January 19th, 2026. The John's Shrinkage. The volatility is pathological. Psychological theory suggests that men with deep-seated anxiety about their size often compensate with a need for admiration, a sense of entitlement, and arrogant behavior. When this phallic narcissism, where self-worth is tied to power and strength, is threatened, the reaction is often extreme, hostile, and abusive. Stormy Daniels famously described Donald John Trump's anatomy as unusual, like the mushroom character in Mario Kart. While it was the least impressive sex she'd ever had, he clearly didn't share that opinion. Today, the market is pricing in the geopolitical equivalent of that delusion. The theme of the day is shrinkage. Shrinking alliances, shrinking purchasing power, and shrinking U.S. influence. The administration is adopting a persona of superiority to mask a fragile reality, and capital is fleeing the dollar for assets that don't depend on Donald John's ego. 1. Shrinking alliances. The Greenland compensation. U.S. futures sank and European indices, CAC 40 down 1.9%, tumbled after the White House threatened a tariff on 8 European nations. Donald John has explicitly linked trade policy to personal grievances, specifically a failed bid to buy Greenland and a toddler-like resentment over a Nobel Peace Prize snub. This is the hostile and abusive behavior predicted by the psychological profile. When the world refuses to validate his self-image, he lashes out. A German think tank confirmed today that U.S. consumers will bear nearly the entire cost of these tariffs. We are paying the price for his need to enforce submission. The Atlantic Bridge is closed. Investors are shorting European political stability and longing the commodities. Silver up 6.2%, gold up 1.8%, that offer protection from a leader whose sense of power is easily threatened. 2. Shrinking humanity. The 24/7 casino. The New York Stock Exchange is building a blockchain-based venue for continuous 24/7 trading of tokenized stocks. The traditional trading day is obsolete. Algorithms don't sleep, and neither does the global instability generated by the White House. Financial markets are decoupling from human biological constraints to match the pace of the sleepless machine. The gap between the real economy and the artificial economy is vanishing. 3. Shrinking resources. The AI power grab. Google acquired renewable developer Intersect to secure its own power grid in Texas, as Gemini API volume exploded from 35 billion to 85 billion calls in 6 months. Big tech is realizing the national grid cannot support the AI takeover, so they are privatizing the power plants. While Washington fights over Rust Belt tariffs to project strength, hyperscalers are buying the actual energy infrastructure of the future. The public sector gets the bluster and the rhetoric. The private sector gets the cheap, clean, renewable electricity. 4. Shrinking influence. The Northern Escape Canada is moving to slash tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. While the U.S. builds a tariff wall against China to project dominance, its closest neighbor is opening a back door. This is a direct rejection of the U.S. containment strategy. Canada is choosing neutral shoring, acting as a conduit for global trade rather than a fortress for American protectionism. U.S. influence is shrinking as neighbors prioritize cheap supply chains over Washington's mind games and geopolitical feuds. In world news, while Danish officials are skipping the World Economic Forum, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is positioning herself as a mediator for the Greenland dispute, breaking from her previous acquiescence to Donald John's fragility. Ukraine has suspended orders from Helsing, Europe's most valuable defense AI startup, citing performance failures. The AI war narrative is shrinking upon contact with the muddy reality of the trench. Donald John couldn't resist attacking the New York Stock Exchange's new Texas outpost as unbelievably bad for New York, framing it as a test for Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Regulatory policy remains tethered to municipal vendettas rather than economic logic. The dollar is shrinking against gold. U.S. soft power is shrinking against European defiance. and human relevance is shrinking against 24/7 algorithmic trading. The market is signaling that the only thing expanding is the volatility required to manage one man's insecurity. Let's hope a tiny mushroom doesn't lead to giant mushroom clouds.